Good evening and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page @Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. As usual, my name is John Ruark, and I am the past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And I will hand it off to Juan Sepulveda.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Sepulveda, and I'm a member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
All right. Thank you, Juan. Nick Johnson.
I am Nick Johnson. I'm the past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time Farmington.
Are you sure that's not Barry White we hear?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like we got the cold and you caught a cold.
Yeah.
All right. Jason Richards.
Thanks, John. My name is Jason Richards, and I am the Junior Warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so Masonic news is light this week, so we'll move right into our favorite segment, the MMQOT. Nick Johnson.
Nick's favorite segment.
Alrighty. I know, you guys, it's always a beautiful challenge, and you guys really step up, all of our viewers. So as you know, I do the Masonic Monday question on Tuesday, and for last week, I'll just read off the names and the answer, and then you guys can work your way back to figure out what the heck I'm talking about. So I'd like to congratulate Robert, our very own Robert, Richard Ingham of John W. Jenks Lodge, number 534, Christopher Croteau of Dorchester Lodge, number 1, Lou Bedford of Palestine Lodge, number 158, Ray Campana of Knob Creek Lodge, number 401, Arturo Sevilla of Cuauhtemoc, number 15, in the Grand Lodge of Baja California, and Jonathan Primo of Lincoln Park, Ionic Lodge, number 539. So the answer for last week was the Watson Casul apron, which was presented as a gift to George Washington by brothers Elkanah Watson and his partner, Monsieur Coussel, from Nantes, France. I also gave credit to the Mount Nebo apron, which is very similar in design. So for this week's question, for the week of February 23rd, 2015, during the early era of American Masonry, there was a lot of disarray. Oh, excuse me. This was especially true in the high-grade Masonic degrees. Within the Masonic Knights Templar, there was an attempt to bring order from chaos. The Grand Encampment of the United States of America was the brainchild of these two prominent Masons and this well-known New York politician, who served as its first Grand Master. Your question: who were these famous Freemasons? Bonus: the Grand Encampment of New York, which was intimately involved in the creation of the National Grand Encampment, was closely associated with this Scottish Rite group. Which Scottish Rite group was it? And then, even better, a double secret bonus: which famous Freemason sailed with the first Grand Master of the Grand Encampment on his famous ditch? If you wouldn't mind sending your answer to masonicmonday@gmail.com, don't forget your lodge name and number, and also the hashtag TMRMMQ.
Hooray!
And we'll make sure to give you credit. So with that, I'll turn it back to John.
Sweet. Very cool. Remember, do not send it to the Facebook page or to the Masonic Roundtable at gmail.com. Send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com.
Very true.
Because Nick does.
Because if you do,
what happens, Nick?
An Oompa Loompa will be sucked up into a vacuum tube, and sadly will not come back.
Will he be singing the entire time?
Oompa loompa oompa dee doo. We're going to get some copyright infringement paperwork.
Alrighty, moving into this week's topic. We have a listener suggested question, which is, when considering joining Masonry, how do you decide which lodge to join? Now, I'll kind of kick off the discussion and with my experience, and then kind of let everyone go around and say their piece. But I didn't know there was a choice, really. Well, like, when I first asked of a Mason, it was a coworker, and he basically said, "I got you covered. See me in a couple days, and we'll do lunch. Answer any questions you have." And he handed me a petition, a blank petition, and then said, "Here, take this over to Herndon Lodge." Okay, so I did, and I didn't know I had a choice in such a matter. The good news is, it was the geographically closest lodge building to me, but also happened to be a very good lodge, very diverse lodge, very active lodge. And but I didn't know I had a choice, really. And so, had I done it over again, I think we'll discuss tonight the benefits of shopping around. So, just to ask a broad question, what should one look for when choosing a lodge? Because you do have a choice. What should you look for?
If you have an opportunity to visit various lodges, even before you're a member, getting to get a feel for what's important to that lodge.
You can do that?
Huh? We've already talked about that. Some lodges are inclined more to esoterics. There are other lodges that have a more historic focus, and if some of those things align better with you, if you've been wise enough to watch this show, you'll at least have an option to look for something like that.
Well, the the good thing is that you don't get a bunch of petitions thrust into your hands without your consent until after you're raised. Nick Johnson. But truthfully, I can relate to John's story because I didn't realize I had a choice either. Because when I asked of my mentor David Hill, for a petition, I was like, well, I've got Concord Lodge right down the street, and Henry Lodge is like a mile and a half from my place. I'm not sure which one to do. And I looked at the petition, and he had scrawled in Acacia. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to petition Acacia then. And again, it turned out to be the perfect fit for me. But the key, again, is visit, because each lodge has its own atmosphere and its own way of doing business and its own focus. And you want to make sure that you're getting into a good, solid relationship with guys with whom you can relate.
Well, and for me, it's one of those that when I was looking for lodges, and I'm sure John remembers this, it was the bad old days of the internet. And so you have a lot of guys, construction workers. For some reason, there was a lot of construction going on the internet. I don't know what it was about, but apparently there were a lot of road projects.
According to those websites, right?
Yeah. Holy smokes, And so, for me, it was like I was in college and I was looking for a lodge, and I was not finding anything because, again, the websites were terrible, and they would never have contact info because, the first point of contact should probably be on the website, and they never would do it, right? And so, when I was joining, it was very tough to find a door. And so for me, kind of similar to you guys, I had the Abe Simpson, but I had like an Abe Simpson issue where my grandpa was a member down in a southern Minnesota town, and he knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy. And so what happened was, it's one of those that he goes, well, how close do you live to Farmington? Well, pretty close, pretty close. Oh, there you go. I found a lodge for you. It's like, awesome. Well, that's great. And, it worked out great because, like, for me, it's like perfect driving distance. Everybody is, like, similar to me. It's a different, diverse crowd. And that's the one thing about, our modern Freemasonry is that, you've got lodges that are kind of focused on a particular quality and characteristic. And I mean, we talked about this earlier on the Affinity Lodge show, but it's kind of nice to be in a lodge where there's a different, everybody's got a different perspective, a different culture that you can kind of draw on. And so I was actually kind of okay with just kind of being dropped into a lodge. And for me, I always tell the young guys when they're complaining about their lodge and what should I do, it's like, well, you can always move, but really that's the biggest
Sounds
danger
easier
with
than
Oh,
it
you
is.
meant move lodges, not like move residences.
yeah.
You could always get out of
Love
town.
Freemasonry? But that's the biggest thing. It's like, when you're coming into the fraternity, you don't know anything. You don't know anything about the degrees. You don't know a lot about most of the people that are in the lodge that you're joining. Even if you're visiting, a lot of the meals, you're not going to see, you're going to see 15 to 20% of the lodge there, right? You're going to have, and so you're already at a information disadvantage. So for me, it's just one of those that you might as well just jump in both feet. And if you don't like what you see after you've gone through, just pack up your wagon and move on to the next town, I guess.
Yeah.
That
But
said, Nick, I'm surprised you didn't find your lodge through Usenet groups.
Oh, those are beautiful. CompuServe.
Someplace, somewhere, Tom Acousti is shedding a tear right now.
He's just going like this. He's just raising the roof. Woo!
Sorry,
Something.
Juan.
That's okay. Something to consider for the brothers that are already in the fraternity. To consider that the candidates that are coming from the outside, they might have no clue what happens. They have no idea that there are options, and especially those that are part of a petition committee, to pretty much ask the right questions to make sure is this the right lodge for the petitioner. And I know at least in my jurisdiction, if there is a lodge closer to where you're coming to petition, we have to communicate with them and make sure that they are okay with us accepting the petition.
Really?
So yeah, and
You have to do that.
yeah, and it has to be, it's balloted on.
Yeah.
So
that was an old school. Yeah, that was an old school that you would find in a lot of jurisdictions where concurrent jurisdiction is actually a very new concept. It used to be, you take a pencil or you take a compass and you take a pencil and you just draw circles around the lodge and you'd see which one you're closest to. And so that's an old.
What's a compass?
Keep their compass says.
But you're not a Mason yet.
Yeah, at first I thought, well, I thought it made no sense for there to be that restriction. If I want to come to this lodge, I should be able to petition this lodge. And why does another lodge that I have no interaction with, why do they have any say? But later on, it made sense to me, because you want to make sure that it's convenient for the new member to attend this lodge. Like, for example, and I'll give you my example. I had a lodge 15 minutes away, but I petitioned on one that's an hour away. And because they had a good website that was informative, I saw pictures of the members. It felt good for me to speak with them, and everything went through its course. And I don't know what else happened behind closed doors, but my petition went to that lodge, and I became a member of that lodge. And it became, as my responsibilities increased at home, we started having kids. My wife's jobs changed. It became really difficult for me to go to that lodge. Whereas if I had been a member of the one that's 15 minutes away, it wouldn't have made any difference. I could have still gone to all the meetings, continued up the officer line, and no problem.
Well, let me add to that convenience thing. I do know guys that are members of some of my lodges that convenience for them means it's actually closer to work.
Yeah.
Some of these guys might live an hour away from work, and they've decided to join a lodge that is closer to work. So when they leave work, since most lodge meetings are in the evening, they'll just go right from work, have dinner, go to lodge, and then go home. And so they chose that for convenience. So convenience doesn't necessarily mean geographic to your residence.
True.
Which in your case there, that whole thing about picking the closest lodge and even getting permission from the closest lodge really would make a lot of sense, right? But the most important thing is big factor number 2 is choose the lodge that you see yourself going to, right?
Sure.
That for whatever reason, if it's convenience closer to work, if it's convenience because you like the activities they do, however you see yourself getting to that lodge, whatever intrinsically motivates you to get out there to that lodge, if it's 5 minutes away or an hour away, that's the one you want to go to.
True.
Well, we're pretty much right next to the Grand Lodge of D.C. Here in Northern Virginia, and I know a good number of brethren who are a member of a lodge holding under the Grand Lodge of D.C. who work in D.C. but live in Virginia and Maryland and other parts. So that definitely rings true, at least for this area.
Mm-hmm. So we did talk about activities too and diversity. That you want to make sure that as you visit, you're not just visiting just to make sure you meet Masons and understand what the fraternity is about. You want to see what the lodge does, right? So if the lodge is also not necessarily the building, it's also the people. You want to make sure that the activities they do, if they do things in the community, if that's something that you value, blood drives, pancake breakfasts, and all that fun stuff. You want to look for activity that way, not just the same 5 guys that just show up and open, close, and really don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes the makeup of the lodge, you can see that there are families there. And for brothers like us that we have young kids, then it would make sense for us to join. Well, you have ours whenever you need them. You can, it makes sense to join a lodge where there's that whole atmosphere where you can, because imagine you'll have other fathers that you'll be able to speak to, exchange, diaper stories and all that good stuff, but have an excuse to bring your family to lodge. If it's a lodge that the majority are, let's say, the composition of this one lodge you're looking at, it's all business professionals that might be single and they don't do any kind of family activities, then if there's another lodge that's still convenient but has a makeup of families where they have Friday movie night or they have a Saturday picnic or something like that, then that might be your better choice. Yeah, I've heard of those.
Important thing.
Who said that? Yeah, interestingly enough, one of the things that I love so much about Acacia is the fact that it's one of the youngest lodges in the district. I think we have a very young district. I said one of the youngest lodges in the district.
Like 3 years old?
No. Yeah. So the members of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 are by far the youngest. Well, the ones who are indigenously raised, which make up roughly 25% of the lodge population, they're all like 18 to 25, and they're fantastic guys. But not counting the academic lodge that is TPL 1957, excuse me. Freudian slip. Acacia has a lot of younger guys, and that was something that did it for me.
Well, that's a good question, actually, is what kind of questions do you think petitioners should actually be asking of lodge? When you're walking into a lodge, usually it's, again, I guess I'll go back to it, you're at a disadvantage in an information context, and so, what kind of questions do you think a petitioner should be asking? I think, figuring out the culture is one, so, asking what activities and stuff like that, but what other questions do you think the petitioner should ask?
Just a rough number of active lodges is how many candidates do they have come through a year? I mean, that's more that the lodge keeps track of, right, to see how well they're doing. Are they growing? Have they not done a degree in 5 years? I mean, that's going to give it's going to be an indicator. I like to think of it as like, It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. It just could be a bad year, but at least it's an indicator to ask more questions about, are people moving away? Is there something that this lodge is or is not doing that's preventing the growth of membership?
We mentioned it earlier, but social media presence and information technology are huge for me. I've mentioned this on some of our traveling episodes. Like, if I'm taking a business trip and I want to go visit the lodge down there, I'll take a look at the lodges in the area, and I will judge a number of them solely on their website and Facebook presence. And that's actually turned out really, really well for me, especially my recent travels. So
I got to second
that's
that.
another thing to do that.
That is absolutely true. So much, in fact, that even the Patriot Lodge, as said before, have had a number of candidates find the Patriot Lodge through Facebook, right? And so,
that's the majority of candidates too.
Yeah. So if you don't take care of your house, meaning your website, your front door, if it doesn't look clean, then they're not going to come.
Exactly.
That's just a fact of life. I wish people judged more on that, but
yeah,
it's much easier to get access to information. Juan?
Yeah, it's like how are they going to find the lodge? Today, the Yellow Pages is just a darn thing that shows up in my driveway. I wanted to stop. That's
it goes right.
That's all it is.
Recycling.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, having a presence, and I know that some of the older members of leadership within lodges put resistance to social media, thinking that masonry should be practiced from mouth to ear. It should be just from a man to a man. But we're not going to be necessarily teaching masonry. We will be coordinating things. We'll be sharing social events. We'll be sharing pictures of different events that we've been to, and that is very helpful. It shows more than just a banner and some calendars. It shows the real people, the people that are actually going to become your brothers. So having a presence on social media, just like John said, I think it's imperative nowadays.
Yeah, the young generation of Masons is online. If you're not online, then your lodge will die out in another 30 years, and that's the sad truth of it.
Well, that's actually my running joke, is that I think I was the last handshake Mason left, because it's one of those that everybody else. Literally when we started that website, it was insane. It went from like just one or two guys coming through maybe a year, sometimes not even anybody coming through, and then all of a sudden the website goes up. During my year, the website went up, and boom, all of a sudden one year we had like 10 guys, and they're all active, and it was like, what is going on? This is insane, And so, yeah, social media is one, having a front porch is one, but really, and you also have to, when you're running these websites, put out information, because people, it's not just, that we're having to dispel myths or anything like that, but seriously, new guys that are coming into the fraternity, they don't know anything. A lot of them don't have a family connection. I would guarantee that almost all the ones that have gone through in the last couple of years in my lodge haven't had a family connection at all in Masonry. So, right from there, if you're trying to visit a lodge or something like that, how are you going to even know if you don't really have any kind of connection, family connection or a friend connection, to understanding a lodge culture or anything like that? And, it's one of those that it's not just visit, but it's ask questions. Just, if I were a guy who was going through and they're throwing petitions at me, hey, you want to join the lodge? I would slow down and say, no, hold on. Before I touch this petition or sign it or anything or fill it out, I'm going to talk to you guys and I'm going to ask you questions. And I want to know about this lodge. I want to know about other lodges. And, it's one of those that it's sadly, and I don't think petitioners know this, a lot of the work is on them. A lot of the onus is on them to actually do the work of figuring out this lodge. So.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point, because I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to flip the question around to see, are there any warning signs that as you're surveying lodges, something to look out for, that something might not be right? And again, I think people rushing you into it is could be a negative sign. Another thing that something I'm thinking of is look around at the physical lodge building itself. And yeah, we have some old buildings, right? And I understand that they all can't look beautiful, but are the brethren taking care of the building? Are they taking care of their property? Do you have pride in the fraternity and in their assets? And so take a macro view when you come in and look around and see, do you see active guys that are cleaning up, that are really making sure that their building is as clean as it could be, but are they proud of it is the most important thing.
If it recently flooded, it can't be helped.
Excuses.
Interestingly enough, you mentioned, one of the warning signs to look out for, one of the red flags is, over-eagerness. But the opposite end of the spectrum is equally dangerous. If you go to a lodge and there's just apathy and complacency toward your visit,
good point,
then how is that going to translate to you becoming a brother? I mean, I'm overjoyed when somebody shows up at either Patriot or Acacia, and I think you look for brotherhood and you look to be welcomed, and if you're going into a fraternal environment that isn't welcoming, then what's the point?
Exactly.
Very good.
You had mentioned something about the petitioner not being too I want to say, like, don't be too desperate to join that one lodge. But one thing that we might be overlooking is the fact that these people are eager to join. Like, their main concern is, like, am I even worthy to be this? Because that seems to be a very common expression. Like, they just want to know. They don't want to ask questions or that might show that they are too picky or anything like that. They just want to make sure that they're considered to be worthy. And through this conversation we're having, or you get to learn that you have options.
Now let me flip that around. Oh, finish your thought, Juan.
No, that's fine.
Well, because I do know of a couple situations back where I grew up that the closest lodge is the only lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you say to that, where if you are very interested in becoming a Mason, but within an hour is really only one lodge, what advice would you give someone that really doesn't have a quote-unquote choice in that lodge? What should they do? What should they look out for? And what should they do if they aren't satisfied with that lodge experience?
Castle Island Virtual Lodge.
Well, I would say, very importantly, the lessons and the tenets that are part of Masonry are very important. To miss out on that component would be a shame. And perhaps, let's say the building is not the best building, and the organization of the lodge might not be at its best, but here you come and you can make the difference. Sometimes all it takes is just not someone that looks at things and complain, but someone that can become a part and take ownership of whatever problems there are, and contribute in whichever way they can. So I would say don't deprive yourself of becoming a member of the fraternity if the one lodge that's available looks a little bit outdated or out of disorganized. Maybe you are that stone that's necessary to bring stability to it.
That's great. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I was going to mention that if you're not finding something, you have an opportunity. That you can lead. If you are great at landscaping, make the lodge beautiful. If you're great at handyman stuff, fix the lodge stuff. If you're good at IT, do the website. So just because it's not there doesn't mean you can't make it more awesome.
Well, and I live in a country. I'm in the South District for Minnesota, so I know a lot of country lodges, and they all function as little islands. I mean, rarely do you visit outside of the lodge and stuff like that. But I've noticed that a lot of the little lodges, the one thing that happens is you've got one guy who joins, super excited, but he's also super organized, and they keep him around in the master's chair a couple of years. Then all of a sudden, his buddy sees how much fun he's having. His other buddy sees how much fun he's having, and you get this watershed. That all of a sudden, the wave crests and the lodge gets turned around. And so, there is hope for these little island lodges that, things do get better. And so, it's one of those that it is just get in there and do the work. And, if it doesn't work out, and you're willing to drive an hour or 2 hours, I know some guys that drive, 2 hours to get to their lodge meetings. So I think it's one of those that just give it a try. Best you can do.
Yeah. And you might be a member of a lodge, because this is something that applies even to someone who's already a Mason. You have your own lodge, and maybe there are things that could be better in that lodge. Well, before you throw in the towel and give up, do whatever you can to make a difference where you are with what you have, and try to be contagious in your enthusiasm to get other people on board with you to make the change. And change is difficult. People don't necessarily like to give in to change, but many times it's imperative for a lodge to change and improve and evolve with the times, and you might be the one that actually makes it happen. And if they don't accept that, then you go. Then you get out.
But I think I like the way you were going too with it, Juan. That once you become a Master Mason, once you understand those tenets, and you are a Master Mason, you can travel to other lodges. So if the closest one is just what you need as a stepping stone to get the degrees and become a full-fledged Master Mason, after that.
Exactly.
I'm not saying you don't have allegiance to the lodge. You absolutely should. In fact, we've said it many times on the show. Respect your blue lodge and keep that active. But at the same time, you now have the ability to travel around. So, Jason, what are they saying on social media?
We've gotten a lot of great feedback tonight.
Awesome.
First and foremost, I have to mention. Scott Sherman, one of our faithful listeners and good friend who was on the show during the Academic Lodges episode, said he gets that younger guys want to be in lodge with younger guys, but he found out very early in his Masonic career that it's very important having older Masons around. They become mentors and friends, and he's always felt that the people who just want to go to lodge for the young folks are lost out on for a petty reason. And I will say, I was not being ageist in my remark, but with talking about being able to relate a little bit to a younger age demographic. But I still think there has to be, if there's fraternity, there has to be some sort of relatability. And I get that mentorship is fantastic and it's necessary to build a bond. But at the same time, if you're the only young guy and the next youngest person is in his late 60s, early 70s, there's only so much that you can do to grow that fraternal bond and relate to everybody else in the lodge. So looking at, we've had several comments actually to the effect of, well, in a lot of grand jurisdictions, there's only one lodge, within 100 miles, and I think we touched on that. But Richard Ingham asked us a really good question. How close do you all live to the lodge to which you belong? And, if you belong to multiple lodges, how close are they? And are there any others, in the vicinity of your residence?
Okay, Jason, start us off.
Okay, so talking about how close is your current lodge or lodges, and do you have any other lodges in the area? As I mentioned on the Facebook page in response to Joe Vanderschelt's comment, actually I'm about 15 minutes from Acacia, and I'm about 15 minutes from Patriot, and within about 15 miles, I've probably got a good 8 to 10 Masonic lodges. At least.
Notice, okay, we got to caveat this. In Northern Virginia, we talk about units of distance as being minutes because 15 miles does not equal 15 minutes. Right? We're not doing the 60 miles in 60 minutes rule.
No. Everything in Northern Virginia is about 45 minutes away.
Everything.
So it could be 2 miles. It could be 56 miles. It's 45 minutes.
So I'll echo that. Let's see, I got 3 lodges. Herndon Lodge is just a couple minutes away, and then Patriot's about half an hour away, and then the A. Douglas Smith Lodge of Research is, since it's on a Saturday morning and there's less traffic, it's also about a half hour away. Juan?
I am a member of now. Well, I transferred when I first joined Masonry. I was 1 hour away. And I heard 100 times, why did you go so far when you had a lodge right here? Why did you go so far when you have a lodge right here? And eventually it really made sense for me to transfer. So now my lodge, Orange Blossom Lodge number 80, is just like 15 minutes away. And the other lodge that I frequent quite frequently is Winter Garden Lodge. And it's an hour away, but it's near my best friend's house, so we hang out and go to lodge. So it's very convenient for me to go in that direction and, kill two birds with one stone.
Convenience, awesome.
Yeah.
Nick, how about you?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. It's like a half hour, maybe something like that. It's one of those that it actually is closer than where I used to live. But still, it's kind of far out there. But I like being in a country lodge, so there you go. It's one of those. I could be in the big old city lodge with the suspenders, but I'm not going to do that. So, I'm in my
Reach it.
And so, I don't know. And that's kind of another kind of funny thing is that, when you're picking a lodge, you've got rural versus city, and there's a big difference. And anybody who tells you otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. And so, yeah. And I just love being in a rural lodge because it's a little more relaxed, a little more chill. But there are lodges that are way closer to my house. But no, I like going to big time Farmington. So
Nice.
So, Donnie Dillon actually had some interesting stuff to say as soon as I find it again because I got distracted. So, yes, he's heard, visit a bunch of times, but it's not so easy for someone to just visit a lodge when they aren't really a part of the club. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think you should still visit. You should still go visit. That's one of the things that I talk about in the Bridging the Gap series, that, we meet on the level, and you should be able to go, and even if you don't know if this is the past district deputy grand master or the illustrious most celestial anything, doesn't matter. the one title that equates us all, that we can call one another and nobody can frown upon it, is brother. So regardless of what past titles they have, which you want to respect, but if you don't know them, it shouldn't hold you back from going to them and extending your hand and calling them brothers.
I'll also say that I think Donnie's question was about, like, if you're not even a brother yet, if you're just trying to figure out, and you don't know any Masons.
Oh, you're not a Mason, gotcha.
Yeah, how do you go out? And, I will say, again, still try your best to visit. Definitely call or email the secretary or whomever's the contact on their hopefully up-to-date website, and find out if they have an open dinner. Over here, that's very popular in Northern Virginia. About once a month, each lodge may have an open dinner that's open for anybody to come, check, and sit down, have a meal, and ask some questions to the guys. But even if not, see when you can go. See if you can show up a half an hour before a meeting. You know, the meetings for lodges are closed-door meetings, right? So if you're not a Master Mason, you can't get in. But show up a half hour early and stick your hand out and say, "Hey, I'm so and so, and I'm interested."
Well, that's kind of, it's one of those that how do you kind of put that info deficit so that you can close that gap. For me, it's one of those that there's a lodge here that has a fellowship night, and what they do is they actually will have a potential petitioner show up for about 6 months, and they meet almost every week for this fellowship night, and so they get pretty comfortable, all of them together, and they're doing things outside of that, and that's one of the ways that you can kind of dissolve that lodge room door that really, I mean, it does. This whole conversation could almost be a TLDR of how do you finally shake the hand in front of you, and that's kind of the thing. It's like and so I think the first thing is if you're feeling like they're rushing you too fast to get through the degrees, just tell them to slow down, and get a little more comfortable. And it's on you, sadly, as petitioner. So just get comfortable, chat with them. If they're pushing petitions and you're really not cool with that, go find another lodge that you want to petition instead, and just tell them, I just want to try this out.
I'm picturing some sort of like bad after school special. Like, I hardly know you. Stop rushing me.
Well, that's funny because the vast majority of Masons I've mentored, and from my own experience, I was like, Catechism's been ready for 4 weeks now. What's the hold up? And so, it goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
We love you.
So we did have Brendan Tanner ask us if we have any experience, as far as traditional observance goes, or petitioning a TO lodge, and I would just lump that under the atmosphere question, where it's it depends on the atmosphere, and you can still get to the officer line through a TO lodge's website, and they still do the same things that normal lodges do. So interestingly enough, breaking from the TO subject, like you all have said, get to know brethren outside of lodge. That's really important. There are a lot of lodges that I know of that actually go out for either dinner or festivities before or after a lodge meeting, and that's a time when you can really come and see the brethren, outside of the lodge experience.
Agreed.
And that is pretty much all she wrote.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Well, it looks like we missed Robert Johnson tonight, but I'm sure he's busy doing secret squirrel things. So we'll have him on in a future episode. Let's start wrapping it up and go around for our usual final thoughts and shameless plugs, and we'll start with Juan Sepulveda.
All right. Well, this is a good episode that I wish was around before before I joined. It would have helped me a great deal. And if you're not a Mason yet, but you're interested, ask questions. Just like we've mentioned, go to lodges if you can. Call them first so that they can be someone there expecting you, and express your interest in knowing more about the fraternity. Don't take it for granted that if you fill a petition, you're in, because that doesn't always happen. But just go in, go in there letting them know you want to learn more about the fraternity, and if possible, join. And they'll let you know what the process is. Come see us. We start dinner at 6:30, or we have an open dinner once a month. It's this day, and it'll make the process a lot easier. But once you're in there, use the time wisely. Have good conversations with the people that you get to meet, and ask as many questions as possible so that you can familiarize yourself with them. I invite you to listen to the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast that I host, and also find me on YouTube. I just recently did an interview with Brother Joseph Wages, and we were attacked by the Illuminati. we were having some audio difficulties. Look at their book right there. I started reading a little bit of it, and I'm really enjoying it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What book is that for the podcast listeners?
This is The Secret School of Wisdom. Sorry, Juan. You go ahead and finish it.
No, you have it right there. Sure.
Yes, The Authentic Rituals and Doctrines of the Illuminati, and this is the Bavarian Illuminati. Brother Joe Wages wrote this with Reinhard Markner and Jiva Singh Anand, and it is a fantastic book full of never before translated into English primary source material on the Bavarian Illuminati that just came to light about 10 years ago. So it's really cool and groundbreaking stuff.
Yep. Yeah. So in the interview that I did on the YouTube channel, you just go on YouTube, just search for The Winding Stairs, and you'll find it there. We talk about 5 misconceptions about the Illuminati. So you hear all kinds of stuff out there about pop culture, Illuminati. We're talking about like the real information. So just there you go. So make sure you go over and check it out. And thank you very much.
Awesome. And Jason Richards.
Oh man, I'm not penultimate tonight.
That's right. You are not.
Crazy, mixing it up. So hey everybody, my name is Jason Richards, and I am a regular contributor on the Midnight Freemasons, and I have my own blog, which is getting some new content very soon. So you guys, thank you so much for listening and watching us week after week. We really appreciate it. And as far as my final thoughts on choosing a lodge, you know what? If it feels right, then it's right. And you have to go and visit in order to make that assessment.
If it feels good, do it.
You know what? They're all brothers, and it's all about getting the best fit. And I don't have anything else I can really say about it. But these are guys you're going to be spending a whole lot of time with, probably much more time than your wife/significant other/family will appreciate, at least in due time when you're in line. So you might as well like who you're hanging out with.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. You sound like Nick Johnson. New content's coming soon to the blog, I promise.
But Nick actually has new content
here.
Yeah, speaking of new content.
I know, it's like the level has shifted. What's going on here? We must bring balance to the force.
Nick, yeah, I gotta say,
it's been a busy year, man.
Your blogs have been awesome lately, Nick, so keep up the good work.
All right, well, thank you.
And what website?
All right, let's see, final thoughts. I'm going to screen share a PDF that was written by Greg Stewart, who runs Freemason Information, and it's one of the best ones out there called "What is Freemasonry?" And so, my honest to goodness, my best advice that I can give you is to get as much information as you can possibly get before you start chatting with them. Not the secrets. I'm not talking about the secrets or whatever, but just think about things that you would want in your house, right? With guests in your house. What kind of guests would you want in your house? What kind of things would you want in your house? And ask those kind of questions with these guys, because as Jason just said, you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. I mean, a lot of time. You're going to be learning ritual and all this other stuff. And so, just get comfortable. But you know what? If you find out that you don't like the lodge that you're in now, you can always move. And trust me, unless you're in certain states that make they have weird rules that are draconian, but most states are pretty easy about, you can demit, grab that letter of good standing, and move to another lodge. So you know what? You're not totally buckled down, so don't worry about it. You can move on. So with that, I think, you know what? Just close the gap, and you'll be fine. I have a blog, millennialfreemason.com. I've been putting up some content. I've been trying to put out stuff every Monday. I think I've actually not missed a Monday, so that's pretty good. It's pretty fun. This latest blog post was about the noon pin, which is a pin that was being sold by a Knights Templar battalion to help Christians and other displaced people through the terrorist acts of ISIL. Sadly, it was kind of made verboten, so now he's just kind of selling them on his own and then putting all the proceeds over to these two charities. And so I've purchased a pin. I'm number 16, so check out my blog and find out more information on that. And also, I'm going to be jumping into a frozen lake, so Polar Bear Plunge. I can give you the address, but also just throw it up there. And so, yeah, just come on out, donate. I'm like $163 away from my goal of $400. It's going to be fun. I promise there will be pictures. You can laugh and laugh and laugh at my little skinny chicken legs as I'm jumping in that water. So,
Nice.
With that, I'll pass it back to you, John.
Awesome.
Yeah, put your glasses down this time.
Yeah. Unlike last year, right? Okay. Let's see. Final thoughts. First, I'm going to do a plug for Al Leathers, who was raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason last night, and so Jason and I were there. I'm going to show a little quick picture because it was a good time was had by all. Does everyone see that? And Al is my first mentee through the catechism, so with Jason's help, we certainly made it through, and I wanted to give him a shout out for all the hard work he's done.
Yeah, he earned every bit of that degree.
Yes, absolutely. The degree was put together very well. Actually, it fell together very nicely. As for the how to choose a lodge, do your homework. Just kind of echo what Nick said. I wish someone told me that you can do your homework, that you can pick your lodge, and you're looking for brotherhood. So if you can't relate, as Juan said, if you can't relate to the people, then shop around. But to put a bow on it, once you become a Master Mason, the world is your oyster. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and keep searching for more light.